This conference will now be recorded.
And I'll continue here since Larry's not here. I'll just continue. We'll get Gary voted in.
Okay. Ready to go? Good.
And then you can take over.
We ready?
No, you just take over. You'll take over right here. Because you are Larry for today's purposes.
I am. That's right.
So you can just take over
Okay.
once you're in. Or once Larry's in.
Testing. We will go ahead and call the January 19, 2022 APC public hearing to order. Mr. Hiddle, are we all set?
Yeah, we're all set for the election of officers.
Or we're good to go? All right. With that, Mr. Burns, if you do the roll call, please.
Absolutely. Jackson Bogan.
Present.
Larry Leverins. Carla Snodgrass. Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Jerry Reynolds.
Present.
Greg Jones. Bob Metzger. Diana Looper. Vicki Pearl.
Present.
Michelle Dennis.
Present.
Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
Perry Brown. Tracy Brown.
Present.
Jason Dumkowski. Lisa Dullum.
Here.
Kathy Parker.
Here.
Jody Hamilton.
Present.
Quorum present.
Thank you, sir. On to the election of the officers.
All right, I would like to take this opportunity to open the nominations for President of the Area Plan Commission.
I move to nominate Larry Leverins for president.
I second the motion.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to move that the nominations for President be closed.
I move that nominations for president be closed.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Second the motion.
I would entertain a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Larry Leverins for President.
Yeah. I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Larry Leverins for president.
I second the motion.
All right, motion and second to cast a unanimous ballot for Larry Leverins for President. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it. And since Mr. Leverins is not here by prior vote, I believe, Mr. Bogan, you are in charge of the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, sir. And that's how you get voted president. You do not show up to a meeting. With that, we'll move on and request nominations for the office of Vice President.
I move that Gary Schroeder be nominated for vice president.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second.
I move that nominations for vice president be closed.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second as well.
Then we vote on that.
All in favor of Gary Schroeder for Vice President, signify by aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries.
I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Gary Schroeder for vice president.
Nope, you just did that. Yeah. Oh, second.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sorry.
so we're done. Okay.
Moving on to the Executive Committee representatives.
I move that Gary Schroeder and Tom Murtaugh be nominated to represent Tippecanoe County.
I second the motion.
I move that Jerry Reynolds and Jackson Bogan be nominated to represent the city of Lafayette.
I second the motion.
I move that Larry Leverins and Kathy Parker be nominated to represent the city of West Lafayette.
I second the motion.
I move that Greg Jones be nominated to represent the town of Dayton, Battleground, and Clarks Hill.
I second the motion.
I move that nominations for the Executive Committee be closed.
I second the motion.
I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Gary Schroeder, Tom Murtaugh, Jerry Reynolds, Jackson Bogan, Larry Leverins, Kathy Parker, and Greg Jones for the Executive Committee.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. On to the Area Board of Zoning Appeals representatives.
I move that Gary Schroeder and Michelle Dennis be nominated to represent the Area Plan Commission on the Area Board of Zoning Appeals.
I second the motion.
I move the nominations for the Area Board of Zoning Appeals be closed.
I second the motion.
I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Gary Schroeder and Michelle Dennis for the Area Board of Zoning Appeals.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? That carries. Briefing session. Mr. Hiddle?
Thank you, sir. The petitioner for case number Z-2845, Jetboy LLC, and for case number Z-2846, Benito Munoz, have both requested a continuance to the February 16th meeting. All other cases are set to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Can everybody hear me okay, or do we need to turn the mic on? Are we okay? Up a little bit? Can you turn the mic up a little bit, Larry? It seems to be pretty quiet. On to the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the December 15th, 2021 meeting as submitted.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. New business, of which we have none, but we do have a public hearing, of which I will read this statement. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the Commission would like you to know the following. When we hear a request to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawing showing the division into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make comments or provide us with the information regarding any subdivision plans will be given the opportunity to do so. When we are hearing a request for a change in zoning, we are trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those of you wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, and then those of you who wish to oppose it will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes. We ask that you not repeat what others before you have already said. We are a 17-member body, and the majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 against are required for our action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, that case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners, who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your phone. All exhibits presented to the commission become the property of the commission. It appears as though the sound has gotten a little better. Everybody good? Thank you. Thank you, Larry.
I move that there be incorporated in the public hearing portion of each application be heard this evening and become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application, and all documents filed therewith, the staff report, and recommendations on the application be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries.
Ready for continuances?
Yes. Continuance of Z2845.
I move to continue Z2845, Jetboy LLC GB to I3 and Z2846, Benito Munoz AA to the February 16th, 2022 APC public hearing agenda at petitioner's request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. On to subdivisions.
I would note for the record that the petitioner for the next case made a minor mistake in the legal ads. In one place it stated Wea Township when it should have said Wabash. Everything else within the ad was correct, including the full legal description and the property address. Therefore, it would be in my opinion that it was an insubstantial error that does not interfere with continuing on this evening with this matter S5050.
Thank you.
I move to hear and vote on S5050, AutoZone number 5535 subdivision, a replat of Lot 6, Meyer number 186 subdivision, minor sketch plan.
Second.
Welcome. And so I do not screw it up. McNamara?
McNamara. Yeah.
McNamara.
Yep.
I will have to ask that again.
That's
Thank you.
okay. That's all right. Yes, those of you who don't know me, my name is Maureen McNamara. I'm one of the newer planners here with the Plan Commission, so just hello again. Tonight I'm bringing to you the first case we have here, AutoZone. Petitioner AutoZone Development, represented by Kevin Murphy and Associates, is seeking primary approval to replat and divide Lot 6 of Meyer 186 subdivision into two commercial lots, 6A and 6B, on 10.52 acres. Let's see if this mouse will, there we go. AutoZone plans to purchase Lot 6B. You can see there the smaller of the two, which totals about 1.1 acres, and Meyer has no current plans for the remaining 9.4 acres, labeled Lot 6A here on the screen. So that will remain undeveloped for now. Let's go back. Yeah. The site is located here at 2568 US 52 West in West Lafayette. Just south of the lot is where US 231 US 52 tees with Sagamore Parkway. The entire lot is currently unimproved, as I said, in Zone GB. Let me get the zoning map up here. Can you help me out, Ryan? This mouse is a little finicky. Going to the zoning map is the best one. Yeah. The adjacent GB zoning to the north, or sorry, I missed the spot here. Yeah, so it's Zone GB, the lot we're talking about here. The surrounding land to the north, west, and south across Sagamore are also Zone GB. The areas east across County Road 250 here. If I can get this mouse, man. In this area, you have some neighborhood businesses, an R1, and agricultural zoning, so kind of a good mix here. The adjacent GB to the north is where Blair Animal Clinic is located, and then Maple's mobile home is here to the east across the road. It's maybe a more obvious neighbor that we all know is Meyer here, and then the Bell Tire, is right adjacent here to the west. As far as traffic and transportation, Sagamore Parkway is a divided primary arterial, and County Road 250 is a rural local road per the adopted county thoroughfare plan. The required right-of-way for both frontages was dedicated to the public in 2013. Let me see if I can, there we go. When Lot 6 was originally platted, and then the no vehicular access statement from the original plat has also been shown here on the replat, along the entirety of all the existing frontages. Access to these lots will therefore be from the existing interior access easement adjacent to the west here, so basically through Meyer's parking lot. The county thoroughfare plan includes the future continuation of US 231, US 52, where it currently tees into Sagamore Parkway, as I talked about earlier. And it will run through the eastern half of Lot 6 here in the future, and continue to the northeast to eventually include a new interchange at I-65, though this will not occur for another decade or so. Meyer, who owns the land, is aware of this plan. The USO allows the Plan Commission to require reservation on a plat when a road project is in the thoroughfare plan and is planned to be built across subdivision request. However, this reservation is limited to a period of 5 years, and since it's so far out from now, we as staff decided the road reservation wasn't needed at this time. As for environmental and utility considerations, Indiana American Water serves the site, as well as American Suburban Sanitary Sewer. Drainage plans will be reviewed as part of the improvement location permit for AutoZone by the West Lafayette City Engineer's Office. As such, no condition for drainage approval is necessary. The correct setbacks have been shown, lot widths and areas are sufficient, no buffer yards are required for any of these lots. So with that, staff does recommend conditional primary approval based on 5 standard conditions. We're here if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. McNamara. Any questions? Petitioner?
Good evening, Mike Wiley, Schneider Geomatics, 1330 Winchell Boulevard, West Lafayette. As noted by APC staff, this is a replat of what was one lot previously into 2 lots to create a developable lot for AutoZone located off of Sagamore Parkway. We concur with staff's conditions, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions from the commission members? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Opposition? Hearing none, we have a white ballot, and bonding is not being requested.
Okay, all right. Did I miss anyone?
You should have 12.
We have 12 votes in favor.
Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Burns, I'll recuse myself from the next one.
Thank you.
So I would say let the record show that Mr. Bogan has left the room. And I move to hear and vote on S 5051, Churchwoods Major Subdivision, Major Preliminary. So, Maureen? Yeah, Maureen, we're ready for you. Thank you.
All right. So here's our second case for the evening, Churchwood Major Subdivision. Petitioner and property owner Blackthorn Holdings LLC by Representative Jackson Bogan and Associates is seeking primary approval of a one-lot multifamily subdivision consisting of 15 apartment buildings with a total of 261 dwelling units on 16.25 acres. So the site here is located on the south side of Elston Road between Old Romney Road and South Beck Lane here in Lafayette. The site is zoned R3, single, two, and multifamily residential. The oldest zoning map for this area actually showed this property to be zoned GB and R1. In 2008, however, the county commissioners petitioned to rezone the site to GB in anticipation of filing a special exception request that would have been for a juvenile justice center. But the request was withdrawn before the APC meeting, so that didn't happen. And then in 2011, Weiser Investments requested a rezone to the R3 district. However, that apartment complex also did not occur, so that's how the R3 zoning came to be. The prevalent adjacent zones include other R3s here to the south, north, and over in this general area, GB and R1. As for land use patterns, the site itself had been farmed for decades, except for an area here of woods at the property's southwest corner that now has been identified as wetland. A church and a few single-family homes are located on the south side of Elston Road nearby. So this kind of cutout here is the church and then the single families. So that gives the odd shape a bit here of this lot. There's several multifamily subdivisions in this area. Most of these are R3 areas. There's also scattered commercial and light industrial uses and some single families along Old Romney Road and then South Beck as well. So good mixture in this area. As for traffic and transportation, Elston Road is a secondary arterial, while Old Romney Road and South Beck Lane are both urban local roads according to the adopted thoroughfare plan. The developer requested 2 variances to not have to improve this tiny piece right here on South Beck Lane, and then also on Elston Road here, except for a city bus pull-off, a sidewalk to that bus stop, and then a bus shelter here, all in Elston. And then a 3rd variance was requested that would allow the developer to dedicate an additional 18 feet here off the right-of-way along Old Romney Road, and that would provide an area for a cement pad for a bus stop closest to the entrance in lieu of doing required improvements on Old Romney Road. The additional right-of-way would also allow for the future construction of Big 4 Trail, plus provide space for a potential 3rd travel lane. So all 3 of these variances were heard yesterday at the Lafayette Board of Works, and all 3 were approved. A single private entrance is proposed to serve the development, and the city is not requiring a no vehicular access statement. A total of 461 parking spaces are required. Ooh. Perfect, yeah. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Ryan. So a total of 461 parking spaces are required, and the plat shows the 461, so all the parking is in order here. Internal private drives will provide access to the parking lots and buildings, so 3 street names will need to be submitted and approved. Also, multifamily developments in Lafayette require 1 bicycle parking space per unit. So on the ILP site plan, we'll have to see that those bike parking spaces as well on the site plan. As for environmental and utility considerations, Lafayette water and sewer mains are in the Old Romney Road right-of-way, and private mains will connect these utilities to provide services for those 15 new apartments. 2 large stormwater collections are also on site. You can see them here. One is on the east side of the wetlands, and then the other larger one is here on Old Romney Road. Pertaining to UZO requirements, a 30-foot wide Type C buffer yard is required whenever R3 zoned is undergoing improvements and abuts a GB zone. But then there's no buffer yard requirements when R3 zone abuts R1. So for this site, that means that there needs to be a buffer yard here along the church. You can see that in this general area, but then the rest don't require a buffer yard. Setbacks shown are correct and or exceed the UZO standards. Lot width and area are sufficient. Green space, lot coverage, everything else looks good. Petitioner has requested permission to bond for these required public improvements, and staff does recommend conditional primary approval based on the 3 variances that were approved, as I said, as well as 10 standard conditions. Thank you.
Does the petitioner or the representative want to make a presentation?
Good evening. Todd Starr with Starr Associates, 215 Alabama Street, Lafayette, Indiana, 47901. We've worked really diligent with the Area Plan Commission to put together this proposal. We've worked with the City of Lafayette Fire Department, and City Bus to make sure that we're including everybody in this design process. I'm going to point out a couple items. We have about 1.67 acres of wetlands in the southwest corner. It's encompassed in trees. That is going to remain untouched. And along the south and east property lines, there are tall, mature trees, and we do not plan to touch them unless there's an outlier tree that happens to stick out a little bit too far. But we plan to keep that buffer yard between us and the residential. Even though there's not a buffer yard required between our zoning, R3, and the R1 to the east, we are going to keep that buffering in place because we think it's important to have that separation between the residential and the multifamily. Also working with the city, as Maureen said, we're dedicating that additional 18 feet for the Big Four Trail. And there's talks about expanding Old Romney Road and putting in a 3rd lane and possibly the trail. So that 18 feet will allow that expansion to have, and they don't have to come back and request or purchase any more right-of-way. That was a later addition once we talked to the city and vetted some of that out. And as she stated, we're going to put a concrete standing city bus at the southeast corner of Elston and Old Romney Road at the northwest corner of the entire track. That's currently where the bus stop is, at the corner there, and City Bus wants it to remain, so we're going to give them a concrete pad there. And then east of the church and north of where it kind of dead ends, that's where we're going to put the pull-off for City Bus, and that's currently where they also have their other pull-offs. So we got a lot of feedback from them on that. Trying to think of, we currently have a traffic study underway to make sure that with our entrance, if there's any additioning, if there's a passing lane or any type of acceleration decel lanes, that's currently going on right now. That could impact what that entrance looks like, but right now, that's what we have in place. And other than that, all the utilities are in place that we can utilize. But if you have any questions, willing to answer, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions from the commission?
Todd, I just had one. You did say these were all market rate?
Yes.
All apartments are market rate?
Yep, it's going to all be market rate apartments. And that's been stated from day one, and there's going to be a high finish to these. It's to get the market rate out. I mean, our client intends for these to be nice-looking and maintained for a long time.
And they're 1 to 3 bedroom, is that?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct. The mixture of 1 to 3, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the clubhouse is going to be really nice with a lot of amenities, a lot of modern amenities. And there'll be a lot of more technology built in this because one of the owners, he has a company that specializes in, using your phone to turn on everything in your house from the temperature to lights. So they plan to implement that here too, to make it a kind of a special place.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor or opposition to this? Just come forward and give your name for the record, and I might remind you.
Good evening, I'm Cindy Martin. I happen to live in one of the complexes out off of the Elston area. I'm sorry, 1590 Hurley Street. So I'm at Overlook Point, if that means anything to anybody. I am very concerned that the infrastructure cannot accommodate potentially 461 more vehicles and that many children on bicycles, motorized things. The reason I say this is because I do live out there, and I do see what the activities are with the children going from complex to complex to complex. And even though this might be of a different income level, they're going to have friends that they go to school with that are in these other complexes. There are currently over 100 police calls a month out at Overlook alone. We've had a high of 160. Can our police force, as it exists, accommodate that many more individuals, children, conflicts? They will be between Romney Meadows, which has a very high police activity rate, Overlook Point, which has a very high police rate, Elston, quite a few, South Ridge, you know the zoning out there. I did hear you say you're going to have another traffic study. The one I looked up was done back in, 10, 15 years ago. That is not reflective. You're forgetting the semi-trucks that come from the elevator off of Wabash that come through there. I don't know that a traffic study in the next month or two would even give you an accurate look at what happens on those streets, on those roads. I'm just terribly concerned. There are no sidewalks. There are no sidewalks up and down Elston, and you aren't planning any on the front. There's going to be more people coming down. I see, even tonight, I had to go across a double yellow line because somebody walking from Elston Point by the church, across from the church, down towards Overlook Point. That lady on a bicycle a year ago was hit and drugged and killed out there. Just this past week, there's been 2 drive-offs, and not because of bad roads, but because of trying to avoid people pulling in and out off into the shoulder. There's no shoulders there. You're directly into grass. Then you're almost directly into somebody's house. The houses are very close to the road. I am just concerned about general overall safety. One other thing, whatever complex that comes in and whether it falls with this board or not, you need to consider street lighting. Overlook Point has no street lights. Our security lights are very nominal. The lighting that is at the porches and the patios can be controlled by unscrewing a light bulb, which reduces the security out there. There are no security cameras out there. Trust me, you are going to have behaviors between each of these complexes integrated there. We have people from outside coming into Overlook to use the pool facilities. There is no on-site security. I don't know what the plans are here, but how are you going to monitor the influx of potentially people abusing your complex? That's what will happen. It's happening where I live now. people from out of the community, other communities, coming in, wild parties, and creating havoc. I mean, we've had the SWAT team out there. You've probably not heard about it. It's not something you see, but I do personally pull up with a proof of document request from the city police to see what is going on in my neighborhood, because it is concerning. It is concerning. These are the things I want to address: the overall general safety, the overall influx. What is happening now is different than what your studies were back when this was originally set up, because Overlook is less than 2 years old. So there's 200 and some odd units, more people, more traffic, more motorcycles, bikes, whatnot as well. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm not against competitive housing. Please don't understand that. We do need more housing, but it needs to be structured for safety and for integrity, that everybody feels comfortable where they're at. Thank you.
Okay. So you come forward. I have a comment that I want to make, that as Mr. Bogan read when he started, when we hear requests to subdivide land, which we're hearing now, we're only concerned as whether the actual drawings showing division lots meet the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. So it says, anyone wishing to make comments, provide us with information regarding the subdivision petition, will be given an opportunity to meet, even though your concerns about traffic, safety, lighting, sidewalks, security are all important. This board has no discretion to entertain that. We can't, and that's derived from a court case back in the 70s where we did not pass a subdivision. Planning Commission was sued, and they lost, and the court said we must approve, and the commission was admonished. I'm sure our attorney could elaborate more, but I mean, your concerns are real and they're valid. It's just we have no authority to really consider those.
Well, I understand that, but you guys know somebody who can do something possibly different.
Sure.
Where I don't. So I'm bringing it to you. I'm putting it a little bit on your conscience, a little bit on your shoulders, to respect very, very valid concerns. And I hope somebody gets involved somewhere along the line. I don't navigate the legality and the committees quite very well, but I am voicing my concern as a resident in a community down the road who, by the way, keep this in mind, we have had 8 property managers in less than 2 years at that complex. Who is going to manage and run this complex?
You know, I agree.
I
and
know,
I appreciate
and you don't care. I know.
No, we do care. We do care. And this board cared so much. One time they didn't approve, they got sued and they lost.
Yeah.
So our attorney reminds us of that. The staff reminds us of that. So your concerns are valid. It's just this is not the board to make those changes. And I'm not sure if the city can help you with that, but
I don't know either, and I don't know what next to do, and like I said, I don't navigate, but all I can tell you is I have seen drug overdoses in the roundabout back there where little kids have had to see that, experience that. I have heard about sexual assaults and rapes out there. I have witnessed and called in domestic abuse cases out there. I have seen shooters come in from over there, and I tell you, it's a lot. And if you don't think somebody's going to get connected with somebody there, I don't know what to say, folks. I'm concerned. I'm concerned.
thank you for
Anyway,
your comments.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Nice, and my wife and I, Susan, we live in the historic Elston Schoolhouse number 9. It was built in 1887. That address is 2440 South Beck Lane. We also bought the adjacent property, which is 2426, which is that little cutout, I believe. It's not part of my property. It's maybe roughly 12 foot wide that goes out to South Beck Lane. So that's where I live, where me and my wife live. I got several questions. One of them was the tree zone. Thank you for putting that up. My house is actually to the right of that. In fact, that's the top of our schoolhouse right there. As you can see, the tree line right where the yellow line is at. The tree line is a major concern to us. The trees have been there for who knows how long. It is nice to hear you say you're not going to touch the trees. We do appreciate that. But for starters, talking about putting apartment complexes back there, are these single-story, double-story, or three-story? The higher you go, the more you can see in everyone's backyard, right into your house. That's definitely not good. These rental properties, rental properties usually can stagnate. The prices even drop the value of the homes all in that area. It's something we need to be aware of. And the traffic, she touched on the traffic thing. We've lived there for right over a year. A lot of semis going to Cargo right down the road. Speeders. There are definitely kids in the area. You're talking about cramming 261 people in that area. There's multiple reasons I can go on about that. We all know. Anyway, one thing I want to ask you about, you said there's a court case that happened in the 70s that dictates that. How does that apply to what's going on right now?
Because this is a subdivision petition where all they're doing is subdividing the land is all they're doing. And there are technical standards in our subdivision ordinance that if they meet those subdivision standards, then we need to approve that. We have to approve that subdivision. The appropriateness, when it was zoned R3, happened, it sounded like several years ago.
About 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago. That was the time that appropriateness, meaning is this a proper place for an apartment complex? That's the time that we could address those issues. And, I don't remember that case, but that was addressed and was approved for apartments at that time.
All right. Well, same comment pretty much. I can't see 10 years ago. Of course, we didn't know we were going to be living there and everything, but that's besides the point. Other question I have, as far as where our yard is, how much property? It's about an acre of ground we own, roughly. Like where the cutout entrance is going to be. You talked about, I believe, up to the side. Are they looking at a little single outlet there going to South Beck Lane? If you are, you're going to have vision issues turning to your left or right just because of the privacy fence. The people live on the corner of Elston and South Beck, not to mention what my wife and I are planning on possibly doing to our property. There's just a lot of issues, I think, that comes with this I don't think some people have thought about because they don't live in this area. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you for your
input.
time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Does the petitioner have anything they want to add? Any rebuttal? He did ask about the entrance. There's a plan that they can look up, but it looks like it comes in off Old Romney Road.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. We originally had an entrance that came off the south side of Elston Road. We decided not to do that, and for security reasons, mainly to have one entrance. There's not going to be anything, there's not enough room off of Beck Lane to access. And honestly, we said for security purposes, we're going to have one entrance. All of it's going to be off of Old Romney Road. Yeah, and there's not going to be any other access to the property. They're three-story buildings. Our client is installing cameras for security because one of the owners specializes in that. And one of the other things we've talked about was having limited access to the buildings because they plan to have key cards. So it's not like you can pass a key, remake a key. I'm sure there's places where you could mimic a key, but it's going to be under high technical, there's going to be some technical stuff that's going to be used, some technology to limit access to these buildings. But yeah, we want to make sure that this is not accessed from more than one, and that way when people come in, they're going to be on camera. If something happens, police can see footage. There's going to be plenty of cameras for that, which will hopefully deter that type of activity. So, thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Excuse me, Todd.
Oh, yes.
And the lighting, what kind of lighting are you putting?
I don't know if we specialize. Have we figured out? It's going to be lit pretty well. It's going to have. The parking lot's going to be well lit. Exactly how many lumens are going to be on there has not been designed, but we're in the process. And I do want to address, the traffic study. There has been a traffic study done that the city had had done on, there's traffic counts, and those are legitimate traffic counts. And so our traffic study takes that already performed traffic study, and we perform, we have a subcontract with the gentleman who does it, and he goes through the whole process using legitimate data. So it's not like we have to start from scratch because the city has already spent money on traffic counts, and they allow that for people like us to use to design these. As far as the lighting goes, it's going to, they're putting in the cameras, and when it comes down to lighting, the architect's still going to be, as far as the building mounts and stuff. So how much lighting they're going to spray off the building in the front. If it's not going to be enough lumens, we'll add light posts and stuff like that to make sure that it's well lit. They've been from day one about safety and technology. So we have no vision that there's going to be, there's going to be plenty of light in this area. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't spray off into, residential neighborhoods. So hope that answers a little bit, Jerry.
Well, she was talking about the only one light bulb or where she was at, and I'm thinking it's going to be.
Yeah, we went to the point that we're actually, we're going to put in charging stations for Teslas and stuff. We have put in a lot of design, and we're putting in, where we're going to put them, around the clubhouse. So there's going to be, we're going to have a FedEx, little center in there so people can key code and get in their own deliveries. And so there's not going to be a lot of FedEx people enough. They can go to one place, and then, if you got your FedEx coming, I can go into the building and I can get what I need. So there's been a lot of effort put into the security and the technology of this place. And they're not going to, so we've been discussing this for a while. The details of exactly how many lighting, when a lighting plan comes out, we can have anybody see it. But it's not going to be dimly lit. It's not going to be where someone can go over and take a light bulb out. They're going to have cameras everywhere and the technology to help protect what they're building. So, thanks, Jerry. Yep.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, first we have a variance ballot, and we have variances just 1, 2, and 3 that they requested, and it's my understanding those are those approved by the city? Okay, those are city approved, but evidently we need to approve those too. So the first ballot would be subdivision variance, just staff number 1, 2, and 3, your vote and your signature. We'll turn those into, you want those together, just do those one at a time. And we, one, 2, and 3, just 1, 2, and 3. 3, approve a signature. And then on the second ballot, obviously it's conditional primary approval, and then they did request bonding at the bottom. Thank you.
Got 10. Count again, maybe that's, oh, is that, okay.
No, that's the next. And then we need to do that one. Yeah.
Okay, we have unanimous 11 votes for the variance ballot.
Okay, we can turn in our subdivision ballots.
couple of ballots. Let's see. Voted to not bond. Was that accurate? Were there two commissioners that voted to do that, or did you hit the wrong box?
Well, as long as we have a majority to bond.
Okay. Let's see, we got one. Yeah, we do have 9 that voted in favor and for bonding, and we have a unanimous ballot for approval, but 2 against bonding. So I believe that passes on both counts, correct?
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for your input on that. Unfortunately, we just don't have any discretion. Now, on to the next case. If we can get Mr. Jackson Bogan back in here, please. I guess the record can show that Jackson Bogan is back in the meeting, and I'm going to put the next case on the floor. I move to hear and vote on Z2844, International Church of the Four Square Gospel, PDRS to NB.
Second.
Mr. O'Gara?
All right. Well, we are on Lafayette's southeast side in the unincorporated county. Developing residentially over the last few decades. As you can see, we've got Benjamin Crossing off to the northeast, a host of other subdivisions surrounding it. The original site, kind of came into a couple of phases of two different planned developments about 20 years ago, give or take. Most of the site was all zoned R1 or A, but in '03, the first version of what was called the Havens at Hickory Ridge Plan Development was brought to the fore. They changed the name later, and that project is what incorporated this site into a planned development zone. It was never meant to develop residentially. The church that was there just kind of continued in with the project. And that first version of Hickory Ridge plan development began its construction but didn't complete. And then in 2010, another plan development, Ravenswood at Hickory Ridge, was brought to essentially complete the original concept with some changes in the architecture. Instead of the fourplex units, they provided an alternative. The rest were all single-family, larger lot projects, certainly all the subdivisions to the west, the other planned development, small lot, single-family detached to the south. But in terms of the zoning rules for the church site, the original plan development from '03 basically said anything allowed in the R1 zone will work here. And that original plan development only allowed for a single lot with those use restrictions, so what was R1. So the churches are allowed in the R1, so it's a conforming site. In terms of the location, Mondavi is the public street that the church currently has access off of. We have, of course, Concord along the eastern frontage. There are no existing curb cuts there, and County Highway has been kind of reluctant to grant any because of kind of the lay of the land there and other streets in the vicinity that might conflict with turning movements and so forth. So this proposal, of course, public utilities are available for the site. In a rezone of this to NB, if a redevelopment were to occur of any kind, then the 30-foot type C buffer yard requirement would kick in for that portion of the property that abuts a residential plan development. So essentially this western boundary that you see here, whether the church were to expand or redevelop, or the proposal for the Isaiah 117 house, the moment that those permits are initiated, or in this case a minor commercial subdivision were to take place, post-rezone, then that buffer yard would have to be brought in, evergreen buffer yard. We do have a very simple site plan, I believe. No? It's so simple, I'm not too upset that it didn't make the slides. But essentially, because of the issue with access, the Isaiah 117 house, which is a social service use that we describe in here, and of course the petitioner and his team can speak more eloquently on what they do. Their proposal is to put the use here down in the southern part of the property, and then extend essentially a driveway to connect with the church parking lot so that they can utilize the current curb cut onto Mondavi. Mondavi is the lone public street. Silverado here to the west is a private street with that planned development. So that is not available to them unless the owners of that property consent to an access point. So that's the sort of the proposal. The Isaiah house use is meant to look like a home, and so it's a fairly low scale sort of structure, certainly less intense than the church building that it would be next to. So in terms of appropriateness of the use, the neighborhood business zone we landed on when we were originally talking. I've been talking with this church ownership for maybe a couple years now, and the Isaiah House people maybe about half that time. And the current plan development zone is pretty restrictive to the R1. And so if the church was running this operation as a ministry of their church, well, it would essentially be an accessory use to the church. We see that in a lot of churches, faith churches being one of the bigger examples, where you have lots of accessory uses all tied to the main use. That's not the case here. The property owner here is interested in subdividing and selling a lot to the Isaiah 117 house so that they can do their operation. So it was our opinion that SIC 83 social service use met this proposed use met that standard, which is essentially just like an office, essentially, a place where social services are dispensed. Staff does not live there. Foster children do not live there, but services are provided, and then, again, foster children are then sent to the homes. Again, I'll let them speak to their operations more eloquently. But so that was the use that we landed on, and that really is reserved for commercial uses, non-residential zones. And so we landed on the NB zone as an appropriate place for this location, given its frontage along Concord. It's a highly visible site. Churches are also permitted in the NB zone, so we're not creating any nonconformity problems. When it's watered and sewered, as this site is, there are no lot restrictions, so they'd be able to split off a lot to accommodate this Isaiah house. And the church themselves would then have some more freedom to further subdivide if they wanted to. Presently, the plan development locks them into one lot, R1 uses only. So the PD did not contemplate further subdivision of this site. So unless the PD is redone to allow that, they're kind of limited to this lot. So since it was unusual that this site was brought into the original PD. I'm not really sure why. It was a long time ago. I urged them, I said, well, since you really have no part to play with the residential part of the PD, it might be worth it to rezone yourself out. That way you can have some flexibility with this site, allow yourself to subdivide, change uses, that sort of thing. And at the time, since churches are allowed in virtually every zone, it really didn't matter the zone. So what's driving this is the proposed use. Otherwise, they could rezone this back to its original R1 state and do some dividing if they wanted to under those zoning regulations. So we felt the neighborhood business zone made sense here, given its visibility from Concord. It's a less intense zone than general business. And the commitment that's been provided does restrict a host of items. It's in our staff report. I won't read them, but some items that they felt would be not welcome in the neighborhood. And so staff was certainly supportive of the NB zone by itself. We have absolutely no problem with the commitment. It's just things get a little stricter for them. So we are recommending approval with the commitment. Be happy to answer any questions. And just to let you know, Mr. President, we've got 21 letters in opposition, and we have one petition that was signed that has about 74 signatures in opposition. So I can, whenever you want it, let me know. I can pass it around and then read these when you're ready.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to those.
Yeah.
Petitioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Joe Bumbleberg with Ball Eggleston in Lafayette. We represent the Foursquare Gospel petitioner in this matter. When this case came to my desk, I thought that, and all of you who know me know that I've been around into the social service groups and the not-for-profits a lot during my life and business. And it didn't dawn on me until I saw this one that there was a social service need that this one addressed, that I really probably should have known that was out there, but nobody talked about it. It just happened, and that's the question of what happens to a child who is a dependent child who is taken from their home under the CHIN system, and where do we park that child until we get a home for them, a place, a foster a home. And I guess it just didn't dawn on me that things didn't move as smoothly as I would have thought. And so when Foursquare came along with this project here and suggested that, it opened up an idea in Tippecanoe County, at any rate, where there was a need. And Lafayette and Tippecanoe County have been generous in their history with satisfying the needs of people. And here's one of them that we weren't doing that with, and now here's a chance to do that. And so I'll speak to that in just a minute, but the concept of providing a service to assist these children who are awaiting foster care placement only really comes to bear on the people who are either in the business or if at some point you were a child and understood what the trauma is when you're taken from your home and put into the foster care. Now, your staff report for this evening is accurate. It spells out all the zoning details, and so I'm not going to belabor that. I'm assuming that everybody read that, and Ryan did a good job of telling you what the history is and everything. So I'm going to get right to the other point. You have in front of you, I put out a letter from Chief Troy Harris of the West Lafayette Police Department, and you have a letter from Mayor Rosworski of Lafayette, both of whom are supporting this project. I also just came into custody tonight of a letter from a lady who is a resident of the area, and I'll pass this out and pass this around. That lady is not only an interesting person, she lives in the neighborhood, and but she also has she has some history in the area of Washington. But even more importantly, I have a microphone, please.
Joe, I think the audience wants to hear you on the microphone.
Oh, okay.
He's got it.
Thank you. I have another letter that I want to pass about that is from the Indiana Department of Child Services, which is indeed the state agency which takes care of these kinds of children. And so I'm going to pass that out and let you can see that this kind of project has a blessing not only from the locals, but it also has a blessing and a suggestion of need. You're going to hear tonight someone says, well, did you do a needs study? Well, I don't think it takes very much reading in the newspaper or listening to the media or doing anything to know that we have the whole concept. And if you do like I do, or like maybe Mr. Burns does, and you read the advance sheets from the courts of Indiana and see how many chins cases we have, we know real quick that there is a need for taking care of these children. So here are 3 agencies, the City of Lafayette, the City of West Lafayette, and the state, who say that there is a particular need. Now, to address this, we met with the neighbors. I met with them 2 times. I think Pastor Holden met with them more than that. And they are all concerned. And we had provided, based upon their first effort, a commitment. And you have that. Well, over the weekend, Pastor Holden met with some more, and I'm not really sure completely how. I figured maybe that these people are a little broader range of residents in the area, but they provided us with a list because our commitment didn't satisfy them. And so they provided us another set of documents that had a list, and I've got that one here, and I'm prepared to offer this as an addendum to the commitment which you have as an addition to it. And on this document, you can see it has all these red letters, lines, and there are
Hey, Ryan, as he's passing those out, what's the rule on commitments and changing commitments? Is there a time frame on that? But maybe we'll address that.
Our attorney and I had a conversation about this a few hours ago.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that, and my concern is always if someone wants to have less strictures, less restrictions, then the public needs to know about that. If they are imposing upon themselves more restrictions, the only person hurt by that is the owner of the property. And so in this case, they're making more restrictions, and therefore they can do them at any time because they are in favor of the public, basically, and it's getting better for the public, not worse. So it can be changed at any time.
So the APC would be in the position of, I guess, redoing the motion to vote on an amended commitment, if that is your intention, Joe.
Yes, that is. You got your hand right on it. I might add that in the last day, Mr. O'Gara and I have seen this coming down the pike, and we've talked about the procedure here, and I think we've got it worked out. You have now the list of the amendments to my commitment that the at least one group in the neighborhood want. That's all these things with a red line on them. You will look on about the 3rd or 4th page in there. There are some on that page and the next page with a cross in front of them. Those are the ones on this commitment that the neighbors would like to have that we cannot agree to. So everything that's lined in red except the 6, 8, that have the crosses in front of them are commitments that we can. We have agreed, even though it's not an agreement that I am particularly comfortable with, it's one that would get us to let us do the circumstance that we are trying to get started in this particular area. On that basis, excuse me, bronchitis has got me. You now have with you the need analysis by the state of Indiana's office in charge of child services, the thought of the mayor of Lafayette and the police chief of West Lafayette, and given the mayor's background in police work and the chief's idea about it, the role of the police agencies in this whole matter. But we have restricted this use to as tight as the people in the neighborhood, at least this group, wanted us to do it. The concept has been, well, what happens if the house fails and at some point down the road somebody else comes in and wants to put a use? Well, they got to fit themselves into the system that the commitment says. Just that simple. Although one person indicated to us in a meeting, what happens if the Koreans start a war? And I'm not really sure I know how to answer that question, and I just am glad that I'm old enough to not get drafted again. The point is, we have tried to make ourselves as accessible to the neighbors here as you possibly can, and you can see that. And my guess is that's a commitment that you have not seen one that big ever. And Pastor Holden, who is here with me this evening, is a believer, and others are real agent for the purposes of this. Emily, unfortunately, could not come tonight because her husband has got COVID, and she's in the quarantine, I take it, a problem that we're all faced with. But we would request that you grant our zoning so that we can build the house here, the Isaiah house, and start to take care of these children who are, by everybody's definition, in need of service. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bumbleberg. One point of clarification before, because there will need to be a motion to add these to the commitment, and I want to make sure that we would amend that properly. So we're looking to add all of the items with the exception of the, please,
I've kind of
the
marked
8
one up
marked.
for our official.
Yep.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I've made one, Joe, that I'd like you to look at, but it's essentially your list, and I've just identified it as an addendum that amends your list. I've indicated that any of them that are stricken out, which I'm about to do and go through so everybody hears what I'm striking out, are going to be omitted. But this is a 6-page document. It's going to be an addendum to the commitment that has been submitted in Z2844. It is has 6 pages, and the ones that are going to be stricken, physical fitness facilities, that's on page 4, nursing and personal care facilities, which is on page 4, individual and family social services, which is on page 5, community, neighborhood, senior citizen, youth center, indoor only, on the same page, community, neighborhood, senior citizen, youth centers, indoor and outdoor or outdoor only, on the same page, child care centers, also on page 5, services not elsewhere classified is being omitted also, that's on the same page, and offices not elsewhere classified I'm also striking out. And I think that accurately reflects it, so if there was going to be an amendment.
I think I saw what he did there, and that I agree with what he's doing.
Make it full. These are not redlined, so do you need to read those two?
And Joe, your intention on these two, they're not redlined, but they're not X'd either or crossed.
So they would stay.
So they would stay. So I've identified, and we'll just use this as the official copy to make sure we get it into the record. And any reference could be made to that exhibit. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make the motion if you don't care.
All right. Fair enough.
I just want to clarify that the adult daycare centers and the religious organizations would be allowed.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
they should have an X or a cross mark by them as being permitted.
Yes, they are not redlined,
Okay.
and so they are included. They should have a mark next to adult daycare centers and religious organizations.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't,
Just like
these are going to stay on.
they're staying on, yes.
Okay.
Everything in red is gone.
Yeah, so,
Those aren't,
so maybe let me start from the beginning and maybe be more clear than I have been. We have a commitment that has in the body of it a list of things that they have committed will never be on this property. We've now amended that to make it a whole lot bigger. It's 6 pages, I've got it right here, and everything that's on here, whether it's got a red line on it or not, is also going to be included so that it will never have any of these uses that are on this exhibit. None of them will be available for this property in the future. It's part of the commitment. And so they're all of them, unless I've stricken them out, because I could take white out too if I had any and white it out, but I have stricken them out with a line through them. And it doesn't matter whether there's red highlighting or not. Ignore the red highlighting.
So adult daycare centers will be allowed or will not be allowed?
Will be
Adult
allowed.
daycare centers is something that cannot be put there.
No,
Can be.
will be.
Well,
That's
you're
one
gonna
that
have
will.
to, you're going to have to look at the list then, Joe, and make sure that we got it correct, because I didn't strike it out. I didn't strike it out.
Question, because.
I only struck out the ones that had the crosses by it.
Now, this one here is not stricken by the red. So the things that are not stricken by red are.
You want to strike that?
No. Put the X, put a plus in front of
Great.
that.
And then we're going to strike it out.
No, leave it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put one in front of that one too.
I got it.
So now, anyone with a plus. Thank you.
Do you mind reading?
I'm going to,
Read through
I
them.
think there's some confusion that I can help clarify.
Please.
We're using the word stricken, and everybody's thinking that that's removing these items. It is not removing the items from the use. It's removing the items from the list that is not usable. So what we're saying is all of these are not allowed per the commitment, with the exception of 10 items, which Mr. Burns read. Those are allowed. The items that are allowed in this area are physical fitness facilities, nursing and personal care facilities, individual and family social services, community, neighborhood, senior citizen, and youth centers, community, neighborhood, senior citizen, and youth centers, indoor, outdoor, or outdoor only, adult daycares, child care centers, religious organizations, services not elsewhere classified, offices not elsewhere classified, and that is all.
I think you got it.
Does that make more sense?
Able to be done. They're able.
What's that?
That's the list of what is allowed.
That is the list of what is allowed. Very confusing, I understand.
Off of this list.
Let me pass this. Anybody want to see it?
Okay?
It's stricken out.
10 allowable uses. Yes.
I would think 10 allowable off of this list, plus anything else that's allowable in the ordinance. So there could be things that we have not talked about.
Right.
But they were
Including
not-
the use, the SIC code I called out, SIC 83, social services. Yeah, okay.
Okay?
I will make the motion if you're ready.
All right. So before we go on and have speakers, we're going to make that motion. We will not vote on it right now. Well, I guess we can vote
Just put it on
on
the floor.
restricting that because that will help the
Add to the
petitioners.
commitment.
Yep. So, yes, please, Mr. Schroeder.
I'll move to amend my motion to hear and vote on Z 2844 International Church of the Foursquare Gospel, PDRS NB with commitment, and the amended commitment as submitted and read into the record.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That carries. Okay. We will now Any questions immediately from the commission members? Is there anyone in the audience? Ryan, would you?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is this going to be one unit? Is this building that's going to be staying on the property, or is it going to be subdivided?
They mean to subdivide. They mean to subdivide a lot for Isaiah 117 house and transfer it to them. So
Isaiah House will be in NB as well as the church will be moved to NB?
yes, that entire yellow boundary there would be NB zoned. And then a minor subdivision, if rezoned, a minor commercial subdivision would have to be submitted and come before you for approval to create the lot for Isaiah House. When that's done, then they can get permits and build.
And Ryan, and for Lisa's clarification, thank you. For Lisa's clarification, the church will not own that piece of property that the proposed petitioner will be there.
I don't know.
I mean, they will not be operating it.
Right. Joe and his client could probably speak to that. I don't know the truth behind that.
All right, we'll come back to that.
I have a question also, Ryan. Part of this says...
Can you speak into that?
Part of this says, somebody said that there would not be overnight, and then somebody said there would be overnight, and according to your staff comments, that zone does not allow overnight use.
It's not a residence. No.
So they can be held 24 hours or something like that is what you're saying? I mean, if they're living there, it's a residence, correct?
No, not necessarily. It's, the way that they describe their use is that, there's a period of time that the kid's waiting there, the child's waiting there to be sent to their foster home. That's going to be their residence. This is sort of a...
So it could be 1 day or 2 weeks or whatever?
I don't know. Yeah, but it is not meant to be a home where they live. It's not their foster home. So
I guess I don't understand.
again, I would turn to the petitioner if you have questions about Isaiah 117 and their operations. Yeah.
Mr. Bumbleberg, would you like to answer that question?
What is the question?
Will the children be staying overnight at the facility?
They can, but that's not the usual.
Joe?
And then also, will it be owned by the church, or Isaiah will not be owned by the church, correct?
Billy, if I get my foot into it, tell me, will you please? But it's my understanding that the church will not own it, but the deal with the people who will own it is if the Isaiah house ever ceases, they have to deed it back to the church.
Oh, good. Okay.
And as to the time that a child stays there is the time it takes for the ADC people to find a foster parent. The history is that it takes about 4 or 5 hours for them to find someone, but depending on the circumstances, it could be a little bit longer than that. But this is not intended to be a full-time residence. It's intended to be a holding unit for this child that tries to restore the child to some semblance of order. Like when you take them out of the house, maybe former Sheriff Brown could comment on this, but you take a kid away from the family and you put them into something. Right now what they do is they end up waiting in some conference room or someplace like that until somebody could take them. And this is a way to take them, and sometimes they have no clothes. You have to clothe them, you have to feed them, and you just have to care for them a little bit. And they are totally disrupted children in need, and this is a way to try to put some semblance, such as it might be, of order back into their life.
Thank you. And I'd like to clarify one item that you said there. And if it should, because I know one of the concerns was, should this project fail, it would then be deeded back to the church?
That's what I understand.
And that's in the contractual documents? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other questions for
Jerry,
Mr. Bumbleberg while he's up here?
Yes, thanks. I just didn't understand staff comment what was said. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Oh, yeah, in favor.
If you would, name and address for the record, sir.
My name's Brian Burden. I'm the assistant pastor there at Innovation. I live 5740 South 800 East, Lafayette, Indiana. So, when you're a pastor and you're speaking a lot of times, you look at the group that you're talking to and you see a lot of different things. And when I looked through this group, I saw a lot of shaking heads of people who don't seem to understand what the Isaiah House is about. It is meant to be a stopover place for kids so they don't have to sit in the police station. They have a home, what appears to be like a home to them. We'll have toys, we'll have different gear in there, just like a home would have. But it's only meant to be 4 to 6 hours, generally speaking. I did see a lot of shaking heads on that, and that did kind of bother me a little bit. That means, have they stopped to listen to this? And what is actually going on here? We're talking about maybe 3 to 5 cars a day in the area there. That's the increase, and they'll come in through our parking lot. You're not talking about 30 kids a night coming to this place or during the day. We're talking 1, 2 a week, 3 a week, depending on what's going on in the atmosphere, obviously. I always generalize those kind of things. I also saw a lot of shaking heads on a senior center. Well, I'm getting up there myself. I'm real close. And most of the people who are against it seem to be senior citizens. You would think they might want to have a place for themselves. So shaking of the heads on that seemed kind of odd. Well, that's great. This is just something for in the future, possibly.
If we could, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, I've heard things such as, you're going to put a speedway in there or something. Why would we put a speedway on the church property? I don't understand that. Maybe some churches have done that in the past, but it doesn't seem like something we could do. And I'm sure they would come out full force if something like that happened. But this is for the kids. This is a house that will blend in with the surroundings, will not add to anybody's needs of theirs at all, other than to drive by it each day and go, wow, there's that house there again. Aren't those kids getting some great stuff? You know, it amazes me sometimes when I think about some people and they worry about what they have and what they don't have, and they're not thinking about these kids at all. They're worried about, oh, this might look ugly or that might look ugly. The house will be brand new and it will look new, it will blend in with the neighborhood. The church will make sure that it stays that way. We also aren't selling this property, we're giving it to them. I'm not sure if anybody in the crowd who's against this would be willing to do that themselves. It seems like to me that they have forgotten the true meaning of this, which is the kids. We're not here trying to upset anybody or do anything. We gave in for all kinds of different things that we thought were great and reasonable. Then they wanted more. You got a list of 100 things there. We only took 10 off. Things that would help a community even more. Literally every single thing there helps your community one way or the other. That we said we can't do that. If we want to build this for the community, we want to be able to build that. So my question to them is, where are we going with this? Why are you really trying to stop this? Is it because you're worried about your houses or your neighborhood? For the 5 minutes that an 8-year-old has to stay in the house for 5 hours before they're put with somebody else? Or is there something else going on here? So I say, because this is the point where we're allowed to say these things about this, right? This is the zoning part. This is for the kids. It's not for the church itself. Yes, we are giving them the property for this, and we will be alongside them to help them, but this is for the kids in our community that are in need. Nearly how many times a day, different places, there are other spots around. Why are we not able to do this for our communities and for our children? So I hope before they get up here and start thinking about the things they hate about us for some reason, think about the children before they think about what's going on and the fact that there's very little impact on their neighborhood at all with this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Burden. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
evening. Name is Jay Orrell, 2425 Stangia Lane. I have a question. Let's say the zoning is approved and then the whole entire parcel is sold. Does this commitment grandfather into the next property owner?
Sir, are you speaking in favor of this petition, or is this a question?
It's a question. I'm here to speak in favor,
Okay.
but have this question.
The commitment goes with the land?
Commitment goes with the land.
Yes, sir.
All right. Pastor Billy, I've known Pastor Billy for 10 years now. I've lived in Hickory Ridge for 11. I've served on the HOA board. Pastor Holden has always been transparent with the community. As a matter of fact, he opened his church to have our meetings. And my heart goes out to children in need. And he does a lot for our community. And I'm hoping that my question will maybe help set some of my neighbors. And this takes a lot of guts for me to get up here and say this. I'm hoping that you folks hear what they just said. That's going to grandfather in. So if that entire parcel is sold, there's not going to be a gas station. None of that there. I'll just leave you with that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone. I just recently moved into the area about 6 months ago.
Ma'am, if you would,
2425.
name and address for the record, please.
It's Darla McCoy, and it's 2425 Stangia Lane.
Thank you.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the Isaiah House is a nonprofit organization. It's, like everyone has said before, it's a place of refuge. It's somewhere for children to go to get food, maybe a bath. Have you ever seen abused or neglected children? They're very dirty. They may have lice. They need care, and it's a very temporary place. And not to gross you guys out, but I work in pathology. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen an abused child, but I have. I also worked in a school corporation for many years. It's extremely heartbreaking to see a child who's been abused and neglected, and you have to be the one to hold them back for the authorities to come get, and they don't know where to take them. The church I was at previously co-founded a Isaiah House, and we all went and cleaned it. We donate food, car seats. I mean, it's a place to raise awareness. You know, if a foster parent comes for a child that's, 18 pounds, they need a car seat, right? So this place gives them that for the safety of the child. I brought up pathology because if these children do not get taken out of the home, and maybe the parents re-educated on how to be a parent and get that opportunity to be better, it could end in my field of expertise. Sometimes bruises are not on the outside for people to see. It's during an autopsy, and then you understand the pain that child went through. If there are more places like the Isaiah House, there's a greater opportunity for these children to be removed from abuse, parents re-educated. We have to remember, these little people are our future. They're going to be in all of our chairs someday. And we have to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy.
Hello, Board. My name is Tiffany Palacio. I am living at 2807 Speedwell Lane, Lafayette, Indiana. I am currently a resident of Benjamin Crossing. I'm a single mom. I have 2 children, and I attend church regularly. The one thing that's given us over and over again are the opportunities to do better for everyone around us, to surround ourselves with the appropriate people so that we can raise our children in the settings that are most valuable to them. When my children thought about this idea and we talked about it, we're talking, he's 17 and special needs, and it's important to him. My son's 10, going to be 11. It's very, very important to him. that they are able to help the other children that are in these scenarios. They go to school with children that are in these scenarios. They see it every day, and they are not able to do anything about it, but we are, and we should. And that's what we should expect from one another, because they will be there to care for us later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Palacio. Thank you.
My name is Nathan Corder. I live at 4795 Leeward Lane, so that's my intersection. I had a question for the city, because I'm new to zoning. What child services are already allowed in PDRS?
The plan development zone's a negotiated zone, and so it was, at the time that it was laid down, it was, residential, and then on this lot, any use allowed in the R1 zone, which is mostly primarily residential, but it does allow some non-residential uses like churches, schools, a post office, a public park, that sort of thing.
Would a neighbor have, in the neighboring community, be allowed to have an in-home daycare? Permitted in PDRS, I don't know the name.
On the residential part, probably not. They would have covenants that would likely speak to allowing a home-based use like that. And so without researching it, I couldn't tell you.
And the R1 from earlier that you said this was originally wood?
The site is...
Many years back.
Yes, it was zoned R1 at one point originally.
It was more the point of confusion I had of that particularly needy kids had been zoned out of this area, that in prior times you could have had child services there, but not for the social services. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, you couldn't have this proposed use in an R1 zone.
Well, then I understand that one. It was a point of confusion for mine of why we weren't already helping kids, and it sounded like it was just because they were the foster kids that we had to make something special. I commend the church. I am a new member there, putting that on out for clarity, but this is also a mile from my house, so I'd be passing this every day, so I did want to speak in support that was confused from the point earlier, so I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corder.
I'm going to take this off. My name is Mandy Holden, and I am the wife of Pastor Billy Holden, 5740 South 800 East, Lafayette, my address right now. So I wanted just to speak on Pastor Billy and I's, why we love foster, like this, just why we embraced this so much. So we started fostering about 4 years ago. And we actually got twin babies for our first placement right out of the hospital, so they didn't have to go into the situation. We wound up adopting them, and so they are part of our family, and I know that their lives are forever changed from the situation that they were in. And through fostering these kiddos, I really started to get a passion for foster families. I actually started a foster closet on our site, and so we average just about 2 or 3 families a week that come to our little foster closet to get clothing, basic care items, car seats, diapers, and the heartbreaking stories that I hear over and over again, and the neglect that a lot of these kids go through, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And so Emily's not here to really share why Isaiah 117 is so important because of her hubby having COVID. But I can tell you that some of these kids, so they imagine being a child, and it's been a long time for a lot of us, and being in a situation, even if it's something that may be harmful to us, but that's all we ever known, and then we're ripped apart from our family, the only family that we've ever known. And we're taking to the DCS office or to some random place, and we're sat there and we're listening to the DCS worker that is talking about this trauma of what happened, if it was abuse or neglect or drugs. These children are more than likely in the same room as this DCS worker, and they are hearing the story over and over and over again, how traumatizing it is for that child. And then especially because they usually call family members first, because they always try to match them with relative placements first. And so to hear a family member say, no, I don't want to take this child. And so I know it's really hard for us to put ourselves in that place, but just to imagine to be that little kid that just keeps getting that trauma over and over again, they're hearing that. Isaiah 117 is designed, they have a little play area, so it looks like a house, like a normal, it's a beautiful building. It's a little white building with a little red door. They have a little family room set up, and it has games. They have a kitchen so that they can go in there and they can feed them, or if they want to make cookies. They have a bedroom, so if it's in the middle of the night, they can go lay down and sleep until they are able to find the relative placement or their foster family. This is only meant to be a few hours, 24 hours tops. I doubt that'll ever happen if you look, and it's the statistics from Isaiah 117 house. But so the DCS worker has a little office that's going to be right there with a window where they can see the kids playing, but then the kids aren't hearing about the trauma over and over and over again. And so this is such a wonderful blessing for our community, because we're kind of taking that trauma a little bit away from these kids. They have volunteers that'll be coming in, and if these kids are coming in a lot, like she was talking about before, they come in filthy, neglected. All the stories that I've heard, they come in their diaper, they have lice, they're filthy. These people bathe these children. They'll give them a treatment for lice. They send them off with brand new clothing. They send the kids off with car seats. They try to do whatever it is they can to help make the easier transition for that foster family. And so being a foster parent myself, and just being in the ministry, oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
About 30 seconds.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes. Billy and I see the importance of what this ministry can be to our community. That is why we are choosing to give a piece of our land to this ministry, because we see the importance of it. We're not getting a kickback. We just see that these kids need love done, and this is how we want to bless them in our community, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Holden.
How you doing? I'm going to be real quick. Jordan Myrick, 2649 Narragansett Way, Lafayette, Indiana. I live over there in Benjamin Crossing. I know we've talked a lot about everything, but one of the things I really want to talk about too is we've been really focused on, this is going to really look just like a house. We want it to stay very much like a house. We don't want it to shine out. We don't want anyone to go, hey, that's what that is. We want it to kind of blend in with everything in the neighborhood. And we've been really trying to do that with our church in general, too. We've been trying to put time and effort into making it look really nice, kind of transforming the church to what we are. Along with that kind of goes with the rest of the land. So one of the biggest things that I really want to hit on, too, is it will definitely probably look a lot better. We're going to make sure it's taken care of. The roads leading into it will be shared with the church, so we'll be always maintaining it. And we want it to keep growing with the community behind it, because I know the houses behind it are beautiful. Everything around the area is beautiful. The entrance with the little wooden gate or the stone crossing or the stone is beautiful, and we want to keep adding to it. We tried to rebuild our sign. We really are trying to continue matching our exterior too, to make it new and everything like too. So the land will be really well taken care of. And once again, if something does happen to it, it immediately goes right back to the church. And then, you know, we're still restricted on those as far as what we can use it for and everything like that. It can't just suddenly turn into a house for somebody, nothing like that. And yeah, so I just wanted to make that statement. So.
Thank you, Mr. Myrick.
My name is David Condon. I live at 4732 Autumn Lane North, right behind McCutcheon. People need to remember, they're not trying to rezone this for a business. This is about kids. God put everybody here to take care of kids. It's a place to go to make them feel normal and not like a burden. We're not trying to rezone this to put stupid stuff in. We're trying to make it a place, and it's not going to have gas stations. This is about kids. It's not about businesses. People need to remember why they're zoning it like that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Condon. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this? Those wishing to speak in opposition of it?
Good evening. Dan Kroll, 4615 Beringer Drive, Hickory Ridge subdivision. My question is, everything in yellow will be neighborhood business. So if the church is not there in 10 years, what's the zoning then?
It would be the same. And,
so as
and
a resident there, I have a problem with that because then it's open to anything. It could be sold to a developer, neighborhood business. You just said it would, if the church is gone in 10 years, that the zoning stays neighborhood business if it passes.
It does with the commitment, sir, and I think that's where, so all of the list of the stuff that people don't
Just to note,
want.
too, I was never invited to any meetings to hear anything. I know there was a Facebook petition. I don't Facebook, so I don't do any social media. I mean, I really don't care who sent letters saying, you know, we think it's great. You know, the mayor, the West Lafayette, they don't live there. It's easy to send. I could send a letter to the mayor's neighborhood saying, hey, I'm all for it. But it's just, I just have trouble with all that being zoned that. I mean, I built in there 2 years ago, spent $300-some thousand on a house, and now, you know, I didn't expect this. You know, if there would have been a little bit more straightforward with me, you know, maybe I think it's a noble and honorable thing. And Mr. Bumbleberg, he doesn't live by there. I know where Joe lives. He doesn't have any social services by his house. So I'm just not really in favor of it. I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Just for clarification purposes, if a letter was written that is and signed, not the petition, but an actual letter and signed, that is actually deemed to be that person's turn to speak. And so just point of clarification. That's all.
Should I acquiesce to somebody
Nope,
that wrote?
you're good.
Okay. Okay, my name is Denise Alkire. I live at 2400 Estancia Lane in Hickory Ridge. And there's been a lot of discussion right now about Isaiah House. My understanding from you in the introduction was that that was not a topic for discussion today. The only thing that was at question was whether or not to rezone this property or not. And if we had an objection, why we had those objections. So I would like a point of clarification before I get started. And I'll go ahead and own the North Korean war thing. I was asked, what's the worst case scenario? So I went there. So are we discussing Isaiah House?
Yeah,
or
we
are we
are.
discussing?
So that was the case before when we were doing a subdivision.
Okay.
So subdivisions are different.
Okay.
And they really are technical. This is now in zoning, so public input is welcome and
About the mission of
absolutely.
Isaiah House.
No, well, it's about the rezoning, and they're telling you what they're going to put there. So
Okay.
it's consideration of that, too.
Okay,
Yes.
so obviously I'm in opposition, and I'm going to share with you some of the things that have come out in our communications over the past 3 months. The initiators of this have not been forthright and honest. We have not had dialogue that has been consistent across the board. We only learn about it when there's a posting put out at the minimum the 10 days before one of these meetings, and then we have to drop our work, our kids, everything we're doing to try to get in and find out what they've been doing. This process has been going on, like you said, for over 2 years. No one objects to Isaiah House. When this petitioner approached the APC, they were given a list of properties in Tippecanoe County that are already zoned and ready for them to do this. They could have accomplished this mission 2 years ago. So there is no need to rezone this property in order to accomplish that mission. Now, the Isaiah House mission is a noble mission. There isn't anyone in here who is going to disagree with that. Is there a need? No one has a DCS needs analysis. We have everyone's opinion on what would be supported, what would be good for our community, what I've seen as a person versus the next person, and we do need social services. That's not the issue. The issue is they want to put this house at the entrance of our subdivision. We purchased in these subdivisions for a collective set of reasons. The church was amenable, neighborhood businesses were not. That was not something that we opted for. I'm going to refer to my pink Post-its now. One of our other concerns is that in the paperwork that we have been provided, on it, it is written that it is non-binding. When we asked that question in one of the meetings, we were told that if something were to happen and the relationship with Isaiah House were to fall through, the property would still be zoned. So in other words, they don't have to build Isaiah House here once you rezone it, correct?
That's true.
Okay, so it's a possibility, it's pie in the sky, it's a plan. A couple of the other things that we have concerns about is that once it becomes residential business, it could affect our tax base, it's going to affect the traffic, it's going to affect future planning. There's a lot of farmland out there, a lot of opportunity for people to say, oh, we'd like this to be rezoned, now we're going to put these together and do this. 10 years from now, we could have a strip mall. Who knows? The point is, today, in order to provide the mission, support, and success for Isaiah House, which is what this discussion is actually about, is how to make Isaiah House successful, they could go to the commission, get a whole laundry list of properties that are already approved for this zoning. They could go out and do the exact same fundraising that they have to do in order to create this house and establish it that they would for any other property in Tippecanoe County. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Elkhart. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
I'm Carl Coveley Jr. I live at 41 Silverado Circle in Lafayette, Indiana. I'm representing the condo owners in Ravenswood at Hickory Ridge. For a pastor to stand up here and accuse us of hate is unacceptable. I can't believe he'd do that. And as for the gentleman that was talking about all the nice things we do, we have a zoning enforcement form at the building commission downstairs complaining about outdoor storage, which is illegal on that church property. And it's been like that for years. The mayor and the police chief don't live in Ravenswood. Were those restrictions changed from what was submitted? It sounded like to me there was something changed on that list. If there was, we've never seen the change. And I don't think the lady who just spoke here has seen those changes. So that just happened the last day or two. This has been a moving target. I mean, we're not opposed. First they say child. It's children. They could go in and take 5 children away from a family in the middle of the night, as I understand it, and put them in there. So it's not just child. But it's been a moving target. Whenever we think we understand it, something changes. I've already addressed that. We understand this rezone is so an Isaiah house can be built on the church property. Ravenwood property owners object to the rezone and the construction of the Isaiah house because we don't like the planned location of the house, and quite frankly, we don't think this is a good place for it regardless of the value of the community. As the lady said, there's other places it could go. Have any of you visited that site to see what it looks like and where we see it from? It's shoehorned into about a half an acre. We're not sure how it'll turn out. We're told it'll have a 30-foot pine wood buffer, or pine tree buffer. We're not sure how tall the trees will be. Then the pastor told us the other day that it was going to have an earthen mound, so we don't know what that is. We're concerned about the damage to our property and our mature street trees by contractors. Of course, we're always told they'll fix it, but they never restore it like it was originally. We don't want a small tree planted to replace mature trees. Mondavi Boulevard is only 32 feet wide, and it's curved. So if the contractors park their pickup trucks on both sides of that, we're down to 12 feet. So we got almost everybody in Ravenswood is 65 and older, and not the best drivers in the world. So that creates a risk for us. We got to feed through there. The Hickory Ridge residents drive through there at a significant speed. We never know if they're going to stop at the roundabout. So, and the other issue is, if it's dry, our condos will be subject to dust on our patios and windows after just paying in the spring to have our windows cleaned. If it's wet, they track mud out in the street on every construction site. So we'll have to drive through that mud to get in and out of the subdivision, or out of our property. And I know there are people at this meeting that support this project, but they don't live in Ravenswood. I mean, everybody would like to have a Dollar General in the neighborhood next door. And there are a lot of people, well, I got that. It seems there are other places that this could go and not have a negative impact on Ravenswood. Can I add one last?
You have about 15 seconds. Thank you.
We still oppose rezone. 71 of 80 condo owners have signed the petition against the rezone. And you have a whole bunch, Ryan's got a whole bunch of letters opposing this.
Thank you, Mr. Coveley, Jr.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Salazar. I live at 1869 Paloma Court in Lafayette. That's in Hickory Ridge subdivision. I have about 150 additional signatures petition. I'm not sure who to give that to.
Those petitions come then. Yeah, it'd be fine. Start it anyway.
I am on the HOA board for Hickory Ridge, and we are against this. Our concerns are not about the Isaiah house. We're not horrible people, and we don't hate children. Our concern is the zone itself. One of the questions I have personally, how long do the restrictions stay? Is there a 5-year, does it fall off, all of the?
It's forever.
Okay. Again, though, there are a couple categories in there that are vague, that are broad, other services. There are a lot of things that it could be. The property does butt up against a big farming area that we know in the coming years will
be commercialized. So we'd like to keep just this little corner not. We're also concerned about things coming out, the city coming out further. Does that bring sales taxes? Does that bring taxes to our homes? City taxes that we don't currently pay. I was in earlier today and spoke with Ryan, and he did let me know, sorry, I'm getting nervous, that in looking for the Isaiah House and his things, he did provide them with many opportunities of already zoned properties for them to choose from for this particular use. But they're choosing to rezone this for just a very small portion of it. And I realize that it's got great road frontage space, and all the wording and everything that comes along with that tells us there's more to it than just Isaiah House. Yeah, I don't know. But concerned about the taxes, just the impact on our property values. Yeah, we just like to keep a little bit of the country in the country while we still have it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar.
Hi. My name is Brenda Miley, and I live at 2432 Silverado Circle, very close to the church. And I have a few comments to what was said earlier. They said that they would take care of the property. My driveway looks out on their trash heap or their burn circle, and it was piled very high for a very long time. When they finally burned it, they had rodents coming into our community. I know of at least 2 people who got rodents in their garage that they had to get rid of because of the pile. And their grass has often been knee-high or higher. That's not taking care of a property. Also, sorry, kind of forgot what I was going to say. Our concern is not about the Isaiah House, at least my concern is not about the Isaiah House. My concern is what's going to happen to that property when that other property right next to it, that is the farm, opens up possibly a road along the north edge of it. You know, even if the restrictions stay, I will be looking at the back of possibly a strip mall that has, you know, the services and stuff in it that you described. You know, we're a community of older people who have invested in our homes, our life savings. You know, this is what I'm going to give to my kids when I'm gone, whatever they can get out of this house. And if the value of it goes down, I won't have anything to give them. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Miley.
Good evening. Candace Highhouse, 4700 Chimney Rock Court. I live in Hickory Ridge. And thank you for the clarification that, again, the land is being donated, because I believe that you had said that it was going to be sold. They were selling the land, but it's going to be donated. Again, I don't think any of us have an issue with the children. And the research that I have done on the need for a foster home is that there are more families that are needed to foster children. So it's not the denial that there may be a need for a foster home, but not at the front of our subdivision. Again, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought, get really shaky up here. Yeah, it's a great thing. We are all Christians, I believe, and understand that there is a need for a place for children to go. But again, I think what the research that I have done is that there is a greater need for more people to take in foster children. So maybe more of us should get out there into the community and say, all right, I'll be a foster parent. And my fear too is also that it falls under this neighborhood business, and any social properties then can take over this. Say that the Isaiah 117 home doesn't actually pan out, and they don't have what they are anticipating having. And then it does go back to the church, I understand that, but what if they decide to make it something else under social services, an addiction center? That's going to impact all of us that live in that subdivision, all of them that live in Ravenswood. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Highhouse. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
You can tell I'm old. My name's Charlie Nelson, and I live in Ravenswood, 2547 Silverado Circle. My biggest concern is the activity and what kind of activity. These kids come from broken homes. Most of them are going to be broken themselves. They say they won't be staying there only a few hours. There's no guarantee of that. If you get an 18-year-old coming in there, who's going to foster an 18-year-old? They're hard to find. They're going to be staying there until they get fostered. And we're going to have 18-year-olds on down, 14, 15, 16, running around our neighborhood. These homes were built specifically for elderly people. It's going to really disrupt not only our property values, but our way of life. That house they're building is probably 30 feet away from that residence right there. I know the people well. I just don't see it. There's no reason for it. They can go somewhere else. There's plenty of places they can go. We've had, well, I don't know if, are you going to read the petitions that were sent in? I was told that you'd read the petitions that were sent in.
They're passing to all the members.
But you're not, no one's reading them.
No,
So-
they'll be part of the record. They're being read by the members.
Okay, I misunderstood that. We've had problems over there, and the pastor says, well, why didn't you bring them up? Well, we're trying to be a good neighbor, just like they say they are. But there's skids piled up. They bring them in there and just stack them up right along our property, you know. We have to look at that junk. He's got these little buildings up there. It doesn't look good. It's devaluing our property. We've had people on that side look at houses and turn away and won't buy them because they're valued probably $50,000 below the regular homes that are in there. And I mean, that's specifically, there isn't any place in Lafayette or West Lafayette like Ravenswood, where you can go and expect to be, I mean, it's completely private. Only one way in, one way out. We pave our own streets, you know, we're responsible for that. And we keep our property up where, I can't say they do. I mean, their yard looks like a sea of dandelions, you know, in the spring. And they blow all over the place, you know. They're not that great in taking care of their property and making sure their neighbors are happy. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Bonnie Easterday, 2150 Mondavi in Lafayette. Why can't Isaiah House, just do that one corner? Why does it have to be all of that property? What's going to stop the church or anybody else coming through and putting other facilities for mental health, addiction in the other part?
Thank you, Ms. Easterday.
Michael Highhouse, I'm 4700 Chimney Rock Court in Hickory Ridge. There's been some, I guess, confusion on my part, maybe not, but Emily, who's in charge of Isaiah House, has not been to the meetings that I've been to. I've been told that she was told by Isaiah House not to show up because it's only about zoning and not about the Isaiah House, excuse me. So I think some of us have come in this thinking that this is all about zoning, and none of us are against the Isaiah House. That's not what this is about. This was about zoning in my understanding, and that's what Pastor and Mr. Bumblebird had said, that this is all about zoning and not about the Isaiah House. I just wish that Ms. Sampson could have been, I think that's her last name, could have been present to the meetings to let us know what the plans are. And I think we're being left with some misinformation from time to time. We're not getting a clear picture of what's really being done.
Thank you. Mr. Hiles. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition of this? Petitioner, time for your rebuttal, if you choose.
Hello, my name is Pastor William Holden from Innovation Church at 2502 Mondavi Boulevard, Lafayette, Indiana. The paperwork, the added paperwork, the added commitments prove everything that we've been for 7 years. 7 years ago, we were approached by a foster agency in town because they desperately needed to support their parents and have a support group. We opened up free of charge. After seeing that group grow, after being there, running sound, running the PowerPoints just like I have for the HOA meetings for the past 10 years, we saw a greater need in our area. We saw the numbers growing. My wife and myself were doing childcare for them when their childcare workers didn't show up. We saw what was happening in our city. In 2017, we did a series called Summer of Love and challenged our church, and we've spoken now at about 10 other churches in Lafayette about foster care, encouraging churches to be the difference that the world needs to see, to stand up and open up their homes and their hearts. If every church in America, which is close to 400,000, if just one family opened up their home, that need would be met. That hasn't happened yet, but I'm still pushing for it. See, in 7 years, we're not going to, in the past 7 years, we don't get any credit for any housing increases prices, but supposedly in the next 7 years, we're the reason that the houses have dropped. The letters that you have with all the red marks, that came from the Ravenswood HOA. I met with the leader. I said, family services was read out. I'm like, that's the family social services. No, that's why we're doing this. We've proved why we were doing it and only why we're doing it with those letters, with those commitments that far outlast me. And so I leave with this, as another person said, you know, we're all Christian in here. On James 1:27, it says, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for the orphans and the widows in distress, and refusing to let the world corrupt you. We went for this to continue to make a difference. You've heard of our foster closet. You've heard of our foster care. DCS is in our building about once a quarter. Never have any of our neighbors had any issues with any foster kids that attend our church, that have been at the hundreds of events that have been on our site. That is just for this forgotten group, for those in distress. And we said, the church can meet a need here. The church that has 8 acres can parcel off a section and give it freely to those that are in distress. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Holden. Commission members, questions?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Would you mind reading through the list just to clarify for everyone all of the things that will not be allowed at that site under the commitment?
You want to do it?
Sure.
Here, start with this, please.
Thank you.
And just make it clear at the beginning, middle, and end that this cannot, these are things that can't.
Yep. These are the items that cannot go into the area we are speaking of. Major Group 55, automobile dealers and gas service stations. Major Group 75, automobile repair, services and parking. Major Group 581, eating and drinking places. Industry number 5411, grocery stores, convenience stores, retail. Industry number 5921, liquor stores. Industry number 5947, gift, novelty, and souvenir shops. And industry number 5993, tobacco stores and stands. Also included in items not allowed, landscape counseling and planning, forestry, building construction, general contractors, and operating builders. Asphalt or concrete paving roads, highways, public sidewalks, streets, contractors. Construction special trades contractors, bakery products, microproduction of alcoholic beverages, specialty food production, apparel and other finished products made from fabrics and similar materials, dog grooming, pedigree record services for pets and other animal specialties, agricultural production, crops, household furnitures, paper and allied products, leather and leather products, pottery and related products, watches, clocks, clockwork, operated devices, and parts, miscellaneous manufacturing industries, stations operated by or for railway companies, stations operated by or for local and intercity bus companies, courier services except by air, self-storage warehouse businesses, U.S. Postal Service, water transportation, pipelines except natural gas, arrangement of passenger transportation, electrical, gas, and sanitary service, electrical power transmission, community scale solar energy systems, natural gas transmission, water supply systems, sewerage systems, refuse systems, recycling collection facilities, paint, glass, wallpaper stores, hardware stores, retail nurseries, lawn and garden supply stores, food stores, automotive dealers and gasoline service stations, auto and home supply stores, gasoline service stations, apparel and accessory stores, including retail custom tailors and seamstresses, eating and drinking places, no drive-in or drive-through services, eating and drinking places with drive-in or drive-through services, drug stores and proprietary stores, liquor stores, used merchandise stores, sporting goods stores, bicycle shops, bookstores, stationery stores, jewelry stores, hobby, toy, and game shops, camera and photography supply stores, gift, novelty, souvenir shops, luggage and leather stores, sewing and needlework, and piece goods stores, non-store retailers, florists, tobacco stores and stands, news dealers and newsstands, optical goods stores, miscellaneous retail stores not elsewhere classified, depository institution, ATMs, non-depository credit institutions, garment pressing and agents for laundries and dry cleaners, coin-operated laundries and dry cleaners, non-custom tailors and seamstresses, photographic studios, portrait, beauty shops, barber shops, shoe repair and shoe shine parlors, funeral homes, crematories, miscellaneous personal services, advertising, security and commodity brokers, dealers, exchanges and services, insurance carriers, insurance agents, brokers and service, real estate, holding and other investment offices, offices not elsewhere classified, photo finishing laboratories, miscellaneous repair shops, medical equipment repair, electrical, motion picture theaters except drive-ins, outdoor advertising services, consumer credit reporting agencies, mercantile reporting agencies, adjustment and collection agencies, mailing, reproduction, commercial art and photography, and stenographic services, services to dwelling and other buildings, disinfecting and pest control services, miscellaneous equipment rental and leasing, medical equipment renting and leasing personnel, supply services, computer programming, data processing, and other computer-related services, miscellaneous business services, photo finishing laboratories, miscellaneous repair shops, medical equipment repair, electrical, medical equipment repair except electrical, motion picture theaters except drive-ins, videotape rental, coin-operated amusement devices, membership sports and recreational clubs, swimming clubs, tennis clubs, amusement and recreation services not elsewhere classified, indoor, offices and clinics of doctors of medicine, offices and clinics of dentists, offices and clinics of doctors of OTEOPATHY, offices and clinics of other health practitioners, medical and dental laboratories, home health care services, miscellaneous health and allied services not elsewhere classified, legal services, elementary and secondary schools, colleges, universities, professional schools, and junior colleges, libraries, vocational schools, schools and educational services not elsewhere classified, job training and vocational rehabilitation services, sheltered workshop and rehabilitation centers, child care homes, social services not elsewhere classified, museums and art galleries, arboreta and botanical or zoological gardens, public parks, membership organizations, engineering, accounting, research management and related services, agricultural research, commercial research, development and testing services other than agricultural research, commercial, executive, legislative, and general government except finance, justice, public order and safety, police protections, correctional institutions, fire protections, public finance, taxation and monetary policy, administration of human resource programs, administration of environmental quality and housing programs, administration of housing programs, administration of economic programs, military recruiting offices, and international affairs. I haven't read that much since high school. That is all of them. Thank you. With that, any other question? I'm sorry, sir. We're under discussion now. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions from the commission members?
Just a point of clarification, and I'm sure the staff already looked at that. If this would have stayed R1, there was no way to subdivide it and allow that to be in an R1 zone with a variance or anything?
No, the use they're proposing is not allowed in the R1 zone. So because of its planned development zone being tied to R1 uses, by extension, it's prohibited.
Okay. Commission members, questions? Okay. We will move to the vote. Remember, we have two items. First is the commitment, so let's do these separately, please, as to not confuse anyone. So the first item we are voting on is for the commitment, the items I just read.
I need another one. I wrote commitment on mine. Oh, okay. I'm leaving.
Commitment only right now. Yes, please.
Just a minute.
Oh, hang on, Ryan. Hey, Jennifer, I think everybody's going to need another one for Jet Boy after this one.
No, Jet Boy's scratched.
Oh, that one's
Continued.
that one's continued.
Yeah.
Thank you. Scratch that. My bad.
I already filled mine. That's how I use mine.
We just all want to talk more.
We have a unanimous ballot in support of the commitment.
Okay,
12
we will
votes.
now be voting on the request for the rezone for the same petition, Z2844.
We have a unanimous ballot recommending approval of the rezone as well. The case will now advance to the county commissioners, I believe, the first Monday of next month at 10 a.m. in this room.
Thank you, Ryan. We are now on to administrative matters.
There are none.
Let's give it a moment for the room to clear out, if we would, please.
So now you guys got to take care of it.
Excuse me. We have a couple matters that we need to finish up in. If we could take these matters outside, please. Thank you. All right, on to the approval of the executive committee agenda. There are none, so we will move to determination of variances, Area Board of Zoning Appeals.
I move the following request for variance from Unified Zoning Ordinance is not a request for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. And that'd be BZA 2069 Wabash Lofts LLC.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Director's report.
Thank you. The director's report was emailed out earlier, and be glad to answer any questions. One item I'd like to call out is to introduce everybody to Amanda Esposito, hiding in the corner. She's our new planner. This was a chain of motion, or a chain of events set in motion by Don Lamb's retirement. Larry Ackerman, who's in the closet, moved up into Don's spot, and then we hired Amanda, very happily, to join us as our new planner. So we're glad
welcome,
she's
Amanda.
here.
I had a question in the report, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, does Larry still remain the floodplain coordinator or the?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right,
He's just now senior planner.
Okay.
Certified floodplain manager.
okay.
You referenced something about the stock well, and you were using two, I don't have the report in front of me, I read it. Who were the go-to people that you were not referencing in the report for Stockwell? You guys are working, it was in your report, you're working with somebody for the town of Stockwell to work through that, and you referenced,
Oh, they have two people, two residents who have done a lot of small-scale development in the town over the years.
I'm
which
saying, who is that? I'm
It's
asking who it is.
Dan Harkle Road and Chris Tabor, Tabor. So we're putting together design standards for new development in the area because they're very concerned about that. So we thought that the folks who have been building would be a good place to start.
Thank you.
Excellent. Next item, citizens' comments and grievances.
Hearing none?
I do have a procedural thing. I don't know if this thing's on. To pick with you guys tonight about not reading the letters. I know you were trying to speed the meeting up, and a lot of it is repetitive, but there is notice that goes out to the public that says that you will read those letters into the record. And so that needs to be changed if we're not going to actually read those into the record.
Well, my interpretation of that is that they are in the record because they've been made part of the record. And, you know,
Okay.
they were passed so
And
that
that's
everyone
been
had the
what
opportunity to read
past
it.
interpretation was, is that they would be read into the
Okay.
record.
All right. Thank you. Worth looking into.
I
Thank you.
agree with you, Steve. That was a question I was going to raise. It's just something that we've always done, and maybe we need to, and we've discussed whether we reduce that or summarize them. But
Right.
I'm thinking most of
A
the
lot
time
of
we
them are-
have read them into the record, so you're
A lot of
correct,
them are
Steve.
often repetitive.
They are.
So I mean, I understand it, you know, being on the BZA,
Yeah.
but the expectation is that they will be read into the record per the current notice that's out there.
No, Jackson asked the question. My answer
Okay.
was that they should be passed and make
Okay.
sure that everybody got a look at them. So if that needs to be changed for future meetings, I'll certainly work
Okay.
on that.
Thanks.
And you're referring to the agenda where it speaks to that?
I think it's actually on the public notice.
The public notice itself, okay. Right.
Well, and what did we pass, or maybe,
We keep reducing the amount to make sure that that letter is less than 5 minutes long. So
I thought we discussed something about letters being sent out ahead of time to be reviewed.
We-
Didn't we discuss that in a meeting? I'm sorry, but
No, we did, and we did do that, actually, in the case of one meeting, and it was the Trinitas case, if I recall.
Right.
And
We
it
had, like,
was a
triple the
meeting
letters
that
in
was
that
held
one.
virtually.
Right.
Right, and that was with agreement of the two lawyers involved with it. So that was a special case. So your point's well made.
maybe that's something we can discuss maybe at ordinance committee.
Sure.
Any other citizens' comments, grievances? We haven't been here very long. Let's just keep talking. I'll take that motion.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you all.